Hello, everybody. Welcome to That's Football. I'm Mark Goldbridge, and I'm joined by Loz as we talk, well, a little bit like we were just talking about your brilliant series you used to do called True News, which was about political stuff and
it was named after me.
It was named after you. And we're going to do it about football. There's so much to talk about. I desperately want to get in about Sol Campbell saying that he believed that the Spurs fans maybe have been a bit racist towards him. We'll definitely talk about that because they won't do it on the mainstream. We also want to talk about Simon Jordan saying that Isak is not fit to lace Thierry Henry's boots. So we'll get into that. So there's going to be a lot of good comments in here, Loz. Loz is not homeless, by the way.
Even though I look it, I am not. It's just a style, guys. It's something in London we call fashion. I don't know if you've ever. I'm trying. It's not working. So I might even cut my hair like Mark next week.
Lovely. That'd be great. That would be good. Symmetry. Get the pink lights on the hack. Lovely stuff. Anyway, before we get into all those big top talking points, obviously, Liverpool fan Loz. You drew at Forest. You've actually drawn a few games lately. Arsenal are 4 points behind with a game in hand.
Liverpool have the game in hand. We have the game in hand. Yeah.
So should be 7 points. Might not be. Let's see. I'm happy because I want a title race, but I'm absolutely convinced that Liverpool will win this title. How do you feel at the moment with regards to that and the recent results?
Okay, there's so many different angles to attack on this one. First of all, I'm very resentful towards you, Mark, obviously, because of the whole. We know you really were supporting Forest on that night, and I know how your real feelings were. Yeah, you would have been thrilled, obviously, because your hometown team obviously won, and your boyhood club essentially. But I guess on the other side of that, there's a couple of different ways to attack it. First of all, every team has a dip in every Premier League season. If as a fan you don't expect a dip, you're an idiot, frankly. Arsenal, I think, have already had theirs. Man City have definitely had and are still having theirs. Chelsea, to an extent, had theirs at the start of the season, worked things out. Sometimes if you have it too early, you get a second dip. But I also think Forest are somewhat of a bogey team. And I think Slot knows there are certain managers who are going to have better tools to counter what it is that he wants to do. And I think Forest are one of those teams. There are other teams who just don't have the tools to counter what Liverpool want to do. Fine. Forest and Nuno are exactly the kind of team where you go, right, I can see you're going to have the perfect tool to cut off this passing lane, the perfect guy to get in the way of that. And you're going to come up against that. And I think Slot knows that. I also think that translates to the players then when they go out in the field and they go, oh, no, they might actually work us out today. We're going to have to play in a different way. You could see that nervousness. But after Liverpool scored, Forest, I don't want to say fell apart, but I felt like Liverpool were fully in control after they scored their goal. So am I worried? No, but mainly because I never expected to be here in the first place.
You know what? When I look at Liverpool, I said you'd win the league when you beat Man City. When I look at that league table and I see Arsenal 4 points and you've got a game in hand, I actually look at Man City 15 points behind and you've got a game in hand, or 12 and a game in hand. And that's the threat. That's the only threat to Liverpool, and it isn't a threat. They're not going to do what I and many people thought, which is just suddenly go and win 10 games in a row. It's not going to happen. And when I look
Newcastle
at Liverpool,
have,
and I hope that the Forests and the Newcastles and the Bournemouths can make. I think Liverpool will still win this league, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But I'm happy that they've dropped points because it just elongates what has been, in my opinion, the best Premier League season we've had in a while. And Liverpool,
I absolutely agree. Yeah, do you know what annoyed me earlier on in the season? There was this chat that this was a bad Premier League season because so many teams were losing. And I actually said this is a good Premier League season because you don't go into any game. And I know they always say this about the Premier League, but I think for a while it became quite predictable. You don't know going into a game what the final result's going to be and how the tactical matchup is going to go. And I agree with you on this one. Whereas for a long time, I think a lot of people were trying to discount Liverpool's early run, going, oh, it's quite a weak league this year, though, isn't it? Are City really that good or Arsenal really that good? And I think overall, you just you're stabbing yourself in the face and the back when you do that, right? Because you're basically, no one wants to get stabbed in the face, especially around here, lads. So, but you know what I mean, right? You don't want to basically spike your face by cutting off your nose.
No, and I think with you make a good point about Liverpool as well, because I agree with you. We're agreeing. We probably won't agree on. Hopefully, we'll agree on Sol Campbell. We might not agree on Simon Jordan, but with Liverpool, I actually think there is no nervousness. I think Slot, where I would commend Slot, and I think he's slotted in really well.
Lovely.
That's not been used before. That might be the first time anyone's ever done that. I think that there is that acceptance that the Premier League is competitive, that it is his first season at Liverpool, that Liverpool were not the favourites. So losing at home to Nottingham Forest back in the autumn, when, let's be honest, Liverpool could have won that game, and drawing at the City ground when, let's be honest, their goalkeeper was man of the match and Liverpool could have won the game.
Mate, he was so good. Why did these guys step up only against us? I was thinking this with the Spurs game the other night, last night, as we were recording this. Why is it that the goalkeepers roll over for certain teams and then for other sides they go, no, I'm going to have an absolute stormer here, boys. Don't worry about it. It's like, just give us that for a second.
I know, but I think Slot at the end of that game, you could see the disappointment, but then I think he'll just go dust off Brentford at the weekend, because you know what, in this league that will happen. Let's not let it bother us. It will happen to other teams as well. And Arsenal did it to with Everton 0-0. Man City did it to Brentford. So I think that Liverpool, look, people try, and I've done it myself, Liverpool in crisis, because that's a tagline of That's Football. It's an in-joke.
Just good fun, isn't it?
Good fun, banter. But they'll be fine. They will be fine, Liverpool.
Do you know the main concern around Liverpool at the moment is the fullbacks, obviously in Trent and in Robertson.
Yeah.
But also in Nunes. People are just, I think at the moment, I've been saying it for a while now. I think a few Liverpool channels have been murmuring it. We don't have a striker that we can consistently rely on to start games. Jota we love, but the main issue with him is his injury record. And when Nunes is on, he's just not the striker we needed. Klopp leaving has devastated this year of his career. And I think his confidence is rock bottom.
But you know what? Compared to Arsenal, you're in a much better position. They don't have Saka.
Sure.
You've got Salah. Diaz can score goals. Gakpo can score goals. Jota can score goals. Looking at Arsenal last night, I mean, I've said this before. I'll ask your opinion on it. I've said it all season. If Ollie Watkins, and I always use Ollie Watkins because we know he's a decent.
It's Premier that level, player. Isn't it? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You put him up front for Arsenal from the start of the season.
Totally agree.
They would definitely be in a title proper race.
Completely agree. I completely agree.
They don't have that. So I agree that Liverpool probably will. I think it'll be a big summer for them. It'll be Slot's first summer in many ways. They will need to answer that problem. But I think for this season, they have got the best firepower beyond any other competitor.
I do agree with that. The one thing that I think most people overlook why Slot was so annoyed about the Nottingham Forest game, number one, it was an annoying game in which Liverpool played badly. Number two, it was the only game that he lost in 2024 as a manager. That's annoying, isn't it? Imagine you're looking back at your record and you go, that was the game. I could have gone invincible for a year if it wasn't for a team that I couldn't even name before I kept. I mean, you probably could because they won the European Cup, but you get my point.
Yeah, he'll know who Nottingham Forest are, Lars. That's a low point for you. It's a low shot. And
you're a big team, Mark. You're a big team. You're a big team.
Yeah, they are a big team. They are. Okay, right. Look, we've spoken about Liverpool, Arsenal. I wanted to talk about that. Let's just move on to this one because we are going to touch on these topics that we were talking about this week. We want to talk about topics that maybe others don't. We're on YouTube at the end of the day. Sol Campbell, Arsenal Spurs last night. Sol Campbell this week dropped what I thought was quite a funny advert about changing his jumper from white to red and all that. And he's taking the piss out of moving from Spurs to Arsenal. I then saw him doing an interview with Robbie, actually. And he's
good interview broadly, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. But then he drops in, and I'll get your thoughts on it first. He then drops in, I don't know, is it about race? And look, I'm going to start by saying I'm going to have a strong opinion on this, but I don't know what sexism is against women because I'm not a woman. And I can't talk about what racism is because I haven't been a victim of that. But I do think that comment from Sol Campbell doesn't actually do race relations in relation to obvious racism in football any good, because you are basically labeling an entire fan base as racist because you did a Luis Figo and you went from Barcelona to Real Madrid. That's what happened, Sol. You literally went from one rival to another, like Celtic to Rangers, like Liverpool to Man United, and that was it. And I don't think it's got anything to do with race.
So should we unpack it a little bit? Because I feel like that's what didn't happen on the podcast after he said that. He sort of went, it could be, couldn't it? And they went, I suppose it could be. And then everyone sort of just went, okay, well, Yeah, and you don't really want to, no one really wants to touch this card because you're right. It's really about, it's really about the dynamics, the social dynamics that people find. But the broad point is, yeah, you went between the two teams that hate each other. Now, will there be people in either fan base that hate you for your racial identity? Absolutely. Will there be people who hate you in that fan base that it's only because you, to them, don't appear the way that they want you to appear? Absolutely, Sol. But that's the case in any large cross-section society. To take from that, you have to be willing then, after you've made that claim, to have the long, and I'm talking like an hour-long conversation about why you think that's the case.
Yeah, you can't.
And how
that's
you think
what
that's
annoyed
it.
me. You can't just drop.
You can't drop it.
Oh,
yeah.
Maybe.
But also, as two white guys on a podcast, which I think is, again, we're covering it because it's a point that's been made in a valid sense. He feels that's valid. Really, the valid response is, no, it's because maybe there will be some people who rate you. It's because you went from the one side. And not only that, you misled and misrepresented what you were going to do throughout that experience. That was the problem. And then on top of that, let's be real, Sol. I think Sol Campbell's one of the greatest Premier League centre backs of all time. I love him. I think he was fantastic for England. I think he's iconic.
Right, and a lot. I think that gets. Sometimes that can happen, can't it? It happens with Gary Neville a little bit. It happens with Matt Le Tissier. Like as footballers, Premier League legends, all three of them.
Yeah.
What they've done after the game probably taints that unfairly.
I don't know. I kind of want to see a podcast with these peripheral figures, like Le Tissier and Sol Campbell, not together, not all chatting with each other. That would be mental. But the main bit that I want to see is them all being able to speak their truth with an interviewer. And this isn't a dig at Robbie. Robbie's a great interviewer. He's a really good guy at getting good answers out of football players. So we're not going down that route. But with an interviewer that's then going to go, so what do you mean by when you talk to water, it has a personality, Ricky Lambert? What do you mean by that, mate? And Ricky then has to be held accountable for that. Ricky Lambert literally said, if you talk to water, it makes it happier. What are we doing here, boys? Like, are we going to have and I don't want to go down the old route of, well, he's headed too many footballs, because that's a genuine sad thing that does happen to some of these guys. Yeah. And Sol Campbell, that is, there's definitely, with all due respect to every footballer, the footballs were very heavy in those days. And this isn't me trying to undermine him in any way, but I think we should start to look after our footballers a bit better in these periods. And I've got to say, if you're his PR person, you're going, how do we do? What am I meant to say now, mate? What do you want me to say now?
I said this on a watch along, I think just in the new year. Over Christmas, most of what I watched, listened to, music-wise, films, TV shows, was
Oasis.
older stuff.
Yeah.
And I sort of hit the new year and I was like, in 2025, I really want to just try and entertain. Not that I wasn't, but I think in 2025, we're so people use the word woke. I don't think they understand what it is. We're so worried about saying things. And I think, look, the tweet I saw, Sol Campbell thinks he's hated by Tottenham fans because of his race, not the fact that he joined their biggest rivals, Arsenal. And I haven't really seen anybody react to it. And that's why I wanted to speak about it, because I thought, well, look, in 1995, Chris Evans or whoever would have been all over this, having a conversation about it. And nobody will. Nobody has. And I think that is sort of the things I want to do in this type of a show this year, is because that is as I say, there might be an element of truth in it, but there is no one's responded to it to say, hold on a minute. And I don't think Robbie can't, because if I'm sat with Roy Keane and he's doing an interview, which I never thought I would get, and he comes out with something like that, I'm not going to go, hold on a minute, Roy Keane, But you also just look over at the Clipper guys and you go, but but the point is, somebody has to say something, because it's such a serious topic. And as I say, we can't say it's not racist, because we've not been victim of racism in the same way that Sol Campbell has factually. So when he says that, you have to take it seriously, but then you also have to go back it up, have a proper conversation, like you say.
I think you might have actually hit the nail on the head with the year that you're naming there as well. So are there still Spurs fans who hold racist views? Every football fan base has racist views. There's going to be some point, obviously my football fan base had some issues with race relations with players like John Barnes and those kind of things. Not that was a whole fan base, but that's a very specific set of people. By the way, not a million miles before Sol Campbell. When you said 1995, it hit me. Football then was not the same demographic of people going to the game in boxes, Brawn Sandwich Brigade, etc., that we now have. So yes, I think he makes a very good point that at the time there probably were a lot more people who made it a racial thing or used his race as a way to needle at him and to undermine him as a player and to try to take away from his confidence during that period of the Premier League. Does it still exist now? Would you hear that in a football ground now? Most probably not.
No.
But back in 95, there weren't that many people. If you went to a game, the likelihood was you would hear something racist. The likelihood was not that everyone was racist back then, but you get my point. Like, it was just much easier for those people to slip under the radar. CCTV was like a new concept back then. You go in and telling the police about your neighbor being a racist, whereas actually, the likelihood was both of your bloody neighbors were racists. And every time he had a conversation with you, every time he had a conversation with them, they went, "You'll never guess what that family next door was doing." The foreign ones. That was how 1995 was.
I must just say, I threw 1995 out as a random. I know that wasn't the year that he moved.
Sure, but it doesn't matter. Even in that decade, like,
what year was it? I would say it was about 2000, wasn't it? Probably.
Yeah, 2000. Maybe we were a little bit further ahead, but I think we thought we were further ahead than we actually were. Is all I'm saying. Like,
my point is, I think it's a great conversation, and we'll move on from it but we have spoken about it more than they did about that, and I think it was a huge thing to say. And I would say that 99.9% of people were pissed off with Sol Campbell because he went from Spurs to Arsenal, just the same as Figo to Barcelona, who had a pig's head thrown at him.
Exactly, and I've got to say one thing I actually do want to say, and I think it is very important, is I actually want to see more pigs' heads thrown.
How did he get it in there? Imagine the smell.
I imagine if you're a Barcelona, I think it was at home, they probably planned that. Does that make sense? They probably went, you can bring the pig's head in, bring in the pig's head. Yeah, if anything, I think the club probably procured the pig's head themselves. So, they probably went, "Can someone chuck this, please?" in Catalan.
No one thinks of the pig. Anyway, from Sol Campbell to Simon Jordan, I want to get into another one here.
I love this one, by the way.
Yeah, Loz is excited about this one.
Love Jordan.
Simon Jordan. Apparently, I got told this week about Simon Jordan, just a bit of an exclusive. Might not be true. I got told by Simon Jordan from somebody who works at TalkSport that he will not do impromptu shows. He's very good. Everything he does is based on research and being prepared, and he will not put himself into a situation where he's not prepared. Not like you, Loz, walking around a street in London. You don't know what I'm going to throw at you. And
it's a very good point. And also, that doesn't sound very TalkSport to me, Mark. I think I don't know. I feel like that's probably why he wins every one of his debates, because someone at TalkSport goes, "What should we debate today?" And then Simon's got like he's got reams of this old school paper that he like ruffles through and goes, "Where's my argument? Where's the argument for this?"
What's my word of the day? Oracle. Yeah. Oracle. Oh, no, I'm rubbish on words. You're better than me. You should be bringing in these Simon Jordan. But you know what? When I did my show at TalkSport, I can't say whether it's true or not. It might be just a bitter presenter at TalkSport saying it. But
probably
when
is.
I used to do my show, you've got these on, and it annoys me as somebody who's not from that background, but you're trying to listen and talk, and you got someone going, "Tell him about this stat, tell him about," I feel like just going, "Shut up," so they have got a lot of that.
Wait, so Mark, can I just ask you a question then? Because you and I did a live stream a few weeks ago when we went to Charlton, and I was saying stuff in your ear. Did that annoy you? Was I annoying you? Was I? No. It's all right to tell me, be honest here, Mark, because I can see your little face getting all, come on, don't cover up your emotions, mate. Tell me honestly, because I know it's happening. Yeah, there you go. I annoyed you. Just say it. Just say it. Say I annoyed you. Say it.
You annoyed me, but you weren't bad, actually. To be fair,
no, right.
You twigged quite quickly that less is more,
which
apparently is pretty much your whole philosophy in life,
especially in male grooming.
How is the wife?
She's very well, thank you. She sends her best. Yeah.
Good. Let's talk about what Simon Jordan said. He said that Isak, who scored 2 last night, is not fit to let the boosts of Thiery Henry. I agree with this, but you've got a strong opinion on it.
So I think to judge someone who's finished their career, won everything, and was probably at the stage that Isak is now at when he entered the league, before he got all the great coaching. I know Thiery Henry was already good, blah, blah, blah. That's harsh. Thiery Henry came into the league as quite a raw talent. And there's someone that I would say a lot of people probably went, yeah, we'll see about this one. And ultimately, Wenger shaped a lot of that identity that Henry had. I think the real prediction, the balls to the wall thing, would actually be to say, by the time he finishes his career, will he be fit to lace Thierry Henry's boots?
I'm just looking at his age.
Was he 24? 23, 24?
25, yeah, just 25. Look,
just 25, by the way.
Yeah, just 25, only 3 months ago.
Exactly.
I actually agree with Simon Jordan on this, but not probably for the reason. Because remember, this is the guy, I'm talking to a Liverpool fan here in Loz, and this is a guy that will not admit that Mo Salah is world class. And that's like me serving up a beef burger where you've seen me take it from the cow and somebody say it's pork. It's definitely a beef burger. Sure. And Mo Salah is definitely world class. So Simon Jordan misses the target as much as he hits it. But on this, where I do agree, is that I don't think he was disrespecting Isak in any sense of the word. I think he is a fantastic player. But what you're talking about in Thierry Henry is, for me, arguably the best ever Premier League player we've had in history of the game. And also the game's moved on a lot as well. I think Pep Guardiola, I said this yesterday, has been a massive contributor to this. When I was growing up, you had the likes of Henry, Letitia, Cantona, even the likes of John Barnes going back a longer period of time, McManamans. I'm trying to think of Liverpool players that did it. These players that change a game. And the reason they play for the top teams is because they are game changers. When I look at the game now, we have hardly any of those players. And I think one of the big reasons the likes of Brentford and Bournemouth and Brighton and any other team beginning with B can deal with the likes of Man City is because Pep has basically took away the individualism of footballers and took it towards him as, look at me, the great coach. And everything is systematic about the way that football is in the Premier League now. And that's allowed teams to be able to get, once they're up to that systematic level, they can be more competitive. Whereas Brentford, Bournemouth, Brighton 20 years ago would not be able to compete against a team that's got Thierry Henry in it, or Marc Overmars in it, or Patrick Vieira in it, because they were game changers in a team, but also individually. And I think that's why Thierry Henry is on a different level to Isak, because Thierry Henry goes down as one of the 7 wonders of the Premier League era. And that's a good Isak is that. But if Simon Jordan's saying Isak's overrated, I disagree with that. If we're just saying that Thierry Henry is on a different level, I agree.
There was a conversation about this that I had the other day when I was at Sky Sports. I got invited into the mainstream, Mark, and I got to admit, it was very cushy. It was a nice gig. Nice, they offer you coffee, good coffee before. Hey, can I get you any
biscuits
food?
That have got oats in it?
Yes, always. I mean, every biscuit's got oats there. They've all got biscuits with oats and almonds. That's true luxury. Is what I'm saying.
Do they kit you out in the university clothing, or is that you have to bring your own?
When I arrived there, they go, "Wow, can we just say you really nailed that look?" And I was like, "What look?" And they just shoved me in the chair.
But you've got to look like we're filming a student union forum, and you've got to have white trainers on.
That's and ultimately you tick on both. Well done. I think, and
be a pretty mid to low level YouTuber.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much.
You shouldn't actually fit
low level
if you hadn't been through the.
If I hadn't been through the ringer, I'd still have a couple of million subs. Yeah, I've made millions laugh. But the point is, right? We asked the question, and Jack Grealish going in at City, I can't think of a team in the Premier League that would have wanted rid of Jack. Everyone wanted him. And the only reason, realistically, Villa let him go is because of the money and because they knew that Jack had aspirations to go win the Premier League and win the Champions League, etc., etc. Leaving Man City, realistically, what is the top team that currently take Jack Grealish? And this will prove everything you're talking about in your theory of the leveling of tactics and systems in the Premier League.
He always ends up at Everton on my EAFC career mode, and I think that probably is the right type of club, because if he goes to Bournemouth, they probably want him, but does he actually suit?
Does he ever start? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Same for Fulham. Same for all these other sides. It's the same for the likes of Harvey Elliott. It's the same for all these potentially game-changing, young, audacious, free-spirited talents with crazy hair. Can't relate. They are the kind of people that you see just thrown to the wayside now. Whereas back in the day when it was Tiz and, bloody Hoddle and Waddle and all these guys, all those people were praised for being those things. They were seen as the difference makers. Whereas now people don't want to take that level of risk on one individual in there. They want to be able to score a goal 9 different ways, but in repeatable systems. And that's kind of the point with what we're talking about with Isak. I think Isak is one of the closest, though, to the level that we see that actually, I mean, maybe given his injury record, not, but I think he would have been all right in an Arsenal team back in the day. I think if anything, he's
a better player because he would be less systematic and probably allowed to be more of a freer player.
And he'd have a lot more space to run into. Whereas now, I think he's probably got a bunch of centre-backs who are equally his pace. Whereas Thiery Henry, let's be real, probably played those about 4 or 5 times a season. Whereas I think Isak now consistently plays quick, young, athletic centre-backs who probably make his job a lot harder. So I think ultimately my reply to Simon is come back in 10 years' time. Maybe you won't even be here in 10 years' time, but, but also be fair. I think comparing eras like that is a little bit petty, isn't it? Don't do that, mate. Although that is half the format of TalkSport.
I don't know the context of what he's saying. If he's saying it to be petty, then he's wrong. But if he's saying it on a deeper meaning like I am, then he's probably right, because you're right. Jack Grealish is probably the acid test on what's wrong with the Premier League, exactly. and how it's steered away from. I mean, it's a great point, isn't it? How many players in the Premier League would you actually go and pay to watch this weekend? Whereas 20 years ago, I'd probably go, well, maybe not, maybe more than 20 years ago, but I used to love to watch people like Asprilla, Ginola, Cantona.
That's almost 30 years ago now, Mark.
Yeah, Zola. There's so many players. Whereas these days, I mean, look, James Maddison is not fit to lace the boots of Matt Le Tissier.
But again, that's kind of one of those people who fits into this. It fits into that system thing. James Maddison at a club where he can be the runner and the rider, great. James Maddison at Spurs, all I see is him go, there's no options either way. And it's like, well, come on, lads, what are we doing here? That allows Arsenal the game. That's not entertaining. And it's clearly not what Ange wants to do with him.
It is an interesting one, and people can get involved in the chat. How many players from today's game, if you took them back to the mid to late 90s, when you had the Le Tissiers and the Zolas and everyone like that, who were scoring worldies, individualism, King Clancy, etc. I mean, what a player he was. How many players from today's game, if you bumped them back there, would stand out like that? Because I think Grealish probably is a player that would. I think Isak's got that. Salah, which again says
Salah's got that.
Suppressing them a little bit, because they would have been more individualistic players.
What would Trent?
Bad, but like expressive players. That's what I mean.
Trent would have been one
to do it. Yeah.
Trent would have played where Trent would have essentially been the Scouse Beckham. I think there's plenty of those players in the Premier League now, but the problem is you'd have to shift their position. They are suppressed,
though, aren't they? They have to. They're told not to take people on. They're told not to shoot from distance. They're told, when do we see these bloody half volleys or your Boas? We don't see those goals anymore, because
that's why the
manager's probably going, why didn't you pass it sideways and keep the shape?
I loved Son's goal for that reason. Son went, ball's coming down to me here. Most other players go, control, pass off. Son went, bash. And it did take a deflection, sure. That doesn't matter. He took the chance, and that's all that matters, mate. I think Son would have been a Sir Alex Ferguson classic. As he probably wouldn't have played as much, but he would have been a Sir Alex Ferguson classic. He's reliable, great personality, someone who's really, you can rely on them when they come on the field to make a difference. Love that. I'd have taken Son all day at Liverpool, any generation.
Well, we could have spoke all day. We were meant to do 20 minutes. We'll let the audience decide on what their thoughts on it. But no, I fully enjoyed it. I'm just conscious let's get it under 30, which is what we actually both are in age. So, or at least look.
Mentally, yeah. You look great for your age. If people knew how old you really were, then, And that's where we end the pod. So fantastic stuff, guys. Thanks for tuning in. It's been great to have you on That's Football.
We really do want to talk about some of the bigger things that people don't talk about. So if you've got any comments or suggestions for next week, let us know. We're sort of going for that sort of true news thing in football, which was my idea, not Loz's. I don't think it's copyrighted. If it is, speak to Loz. Just blame him again.
Believe me, I'm not the copyright holder.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a great show it was, though, and fair play for them. Whoever has
who they are. Yeah.
Whoever.
Yeah.
Lars, you're a legend. Walking around. Where were you, Swansea?
Farringdon, as they call it. This is called. They're rebranding it at the moment, Mark. They're trying to make it Midtown because things need to sound more American. But I'm bucking the trend, and I'm about to go and buy myself a steak sandwich to reward myself after this podcast. So
lovely.
Yeah,
London,
that's real, man. Yeah. London. Come down, mate. We really want to see. I'd love. Mark and I went for a lovely dinner once in London, and we sort of promised it would happen more, and then it never happened again.
It was a lovely red wine. Let's do that soon.
Let's do that.
We could do the pod there.
I would love to do the pod there. It would be a very different pod with that amount of red wine, but yeah, it would be good.
That was good. We do need to do that. Okay, mate. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. Make sure you get your comments in. Smash a like. Thanks to Loz, and we'll speak to you on the next one.